I'm Nicole Green, and I am the director of Animalearn. I'm really happy to be here today to talk to Save the Frogs members. It's really exciting for me. I have been working for close to 20 years on the use of animals used in education. And so what I'm going to talk about a little bit today is about humane science education and how we can effectively talk about alternatives to using frogs in science classes. So a big part of my job is really working to help educators and students to find the most effective non-animal alternatives to dissection, and to help them to teach and study science in a more compassionate and more humane manner. So really a large part of what I do is trying to help teachers and students to make that connection to those animals, to who you see in the dissection tray. And here we have Kermit protesting dissection very appropriately. So it's not easy being green, and frogs sadly are the most commonly dissected species. They're the most commonly dissected animals. Typically, grass frogs and bullfrogs are commonly used for dissection. Dissection is an activity that has been done for decades, and it's been very common. Was very common and became traditional exercise back in the 1940s. But as time has moved on, there have been a lot more alternatives that have progressively been created to and developed so you don't have to use frogs in science classes. What we found in a records request of U.S. Fish and Wildlife records was that close to 1 million frogs were taken from the wild, and this is where we found that they're typically taken for use in U.S. science classes. So these frogs were taken from Mexico to be used specifically in U.S. science classes. I mean, obviously that has a huge impact on their ecosystems there in Mexico. So what we want to do is we want to discourage frog dissections. We want to encourage teachers and students to not do these types of activities. We've also found that frogs can also be farm raised. Recently came across a video that went viral that was of football fields of frogs who were just packed in these containments to be used specifically for frog legs. And what we have found from biological supply companies, which are the places that sell animal specimens, that a lot of the frogs that they are purchasing are from the food industry. So just something for you to be aware of with frogs. Also, with any kind of animal specimen, they're preserved and with harmful chemicals like formaldehyde and formalin, which can obviously be harmful to our environment. It can, when they're discarded, these chemicals can leach into our soil, into our water. It can affect wildlife and obviously humans. When students are exposed to dissections of any kind of animal that is preserved with chemicals, they can have health effects. So that can affect their health, especially younger children. So there are many negatives to doing dissections. And dissections are very wasteful. When you're dissecting a frog, you're taking that frog and cutting into it one time and then discarding it. So what is that value of life? It's really wanting to encourage empathy and to value and respect the lives of animals. And just wanted to give you an idea of some other animals who are used for dissection that come from different industries, and cats and dogs can be purchased from biological supply companies, and they can come from shelters. We have talked to some science teachers that when they're dissecting cats, They found microchips in the cats, or toys in their stomachs, indicating that they were once someone's pet. There are animals that are coming from the food industry, like fetal pigs and cow eyes and sheep hearts and pig brains. Mink are a byproduct of the fur industry. And then there are rats and mice and birds, and also sharks and fish, who are commonly used for dissection. So just to give you an idea of the variety of different animals that are used, and invertebrates. But there are many students who really care about animals, and this is why this has become such a hot topic, I would say, today. The student at the top is an image of a student who we've highlighted, Animalearn has highlighted as a humane student for taking action on behalf of amphibian conservation. At the age of 9, she actually started her own amphibian conservation organization called Conserve It Forward. And she was also promoting dissection alternatives with the work that she did. So there are young kids that really care about frogs and want to do something and want to advocate on their behalf. We also have students that are vegan or vegetarian that want to opt for dissection alternatives because of, their ethical beliefs. So, many times when we're younger, we care about animals, we want to make a difference. And when we're faced with having to dissect, that can be really traumatic for a student. Currently in the United States, there are 18 states that offer student choice policies, or policies that basically give students the right to opt out of dissections. There's our list here of the different states. Also, Washington, D.C. gives students the right to opt out of dissection. And what Animalearn does is we like to advocate on behalf of legislation that's being proposed for dissection choice. There are 3 states this year that that implemented bills, legislation in Maryland, in Indiana, as well as in Hawaii. So sadly, the bills were not passed in Maryland, and the Maryland bill advocated for statewide student choice. Maryland does have some counties that do give students the right to opt out, but not statewide. So that bill did not pass. But fortunately, there's another bill in California that was very recently proposed by an assembly person who wants to ban dissection from K to 12. So that is really is a sign of the times, I would say, because alternatives are really have progressed so much that this is the wave of the future. With technology and ed tech in our classrooms today, we really don't need to look to those specimens to be able to learn anatomy because of the variety of technology. I also wanted to give an idea of some of the global state of dissection. Dissection is no longer practiced in the Netherlands or Switzerland, Argentina, in the Slovak Republic, or in Israel. In fact, it's not happening there in primary or secondary school. India actually recently banned the dissection of animals in zoology and life sciences at the university level. So I would say, if they're not doing it at a university level, that really speaks volumes to the efficacy, I would say, of the dissection alternatives that are available. And Canada also has some school districts that offer student choice policies, but that is not throughout the entire country. But there is a wonderful organization called the Animals in Science Policy Institute that is working tirelessly to really advocate on behalf of student choice in Canada. So if you're interested in learning about that, you could contact them. Fortunately, there are science education organizations, affiliations that do support student choice. The National Science Teachers Association recommends that science teachers be prepared for students that object to dissection. And the National Science Education Leadership Association, which is affiliated with NSTA, actually has a position statement that says dissection as an instructional strategy is discouraged in science classes. So that was really exciting for me to see something like that, where science teachers are actually, discouraging dissection as an activity. that really kind of speaks to why we should be using these non-animal alternatives. So why should we be using them? Not just because there's support within the science education community, but because it can be a significant cost savings for teachers to be able to implement alternatives. It can provide innovative and beneficial learning experiences, as well as tactile learning without the mess, as well as 21st century learning. And of course, no animals are harmed with all those and all of these benefits. So Animalearn did a cost comparison between the effectiveness of specimens versus using alternatives over a 3-year period. And we found that there was a significant thousands of dollars cost savings with the implementation of alternatives being the primary method to learn. Now, a lot of school districts are, have tight budgets. And so this is a win-win for them. So if you're trying to advocate on behalf of using alternatives, look at the statistics, look at the information that's been collected on, comparing the two. We found that initially it may be, especially with technology, it may be an initial investment, but over time, it's going to be a minimal cost for upkeep with technology. And with specimens, you're purchasing them year after year with all of the equipment that comes with the specimens. So it's just something to think about. And this is a wonderful resource from one of our colleagues, Dr. Lynette Hart. It's a book that she read if you're interested in learning about the history of dissection and some really wonderful information about alternatives. I recommend this book highly. It's called Why Dissection, Animal Use in Education. But she advocates on behalf of dissection alternatives, saying that without a doubt, dissection of animal cadavers is on its way out, if for no other reason than the cost. So just, this is a veterinary professional in the science education system saying something like that. And we do have support from other science educators. The teacher on the top, the first picture, that's our one of our humane educators, Dr. Brian Ogle, and he said that the use of dissection as a teaching tool is quickly becoming outdated and unnecessary in today's world, especially with the technology out there. And the past National Science Teachers Association president said, can schools offer excellent programs in life science without including dissection? Certainly they can. So these are, top professionals in the science education community who are in support of non-animal methods over alternatives, as opposed to dissection specimens. So talking about technology, wanted to get a little bit into kind of the verbiage and a little bit about what's happening with science education. Technology is increasingly becoming more of a center stage, I would say, especially with STEM initiatives. So that's science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. A lot of schools are looking into STEM type careers for kids. So that means using technology. And it's a great way for our organization to really go in there and educate teachers about the technology that can be used to replace animals in education. So I just wanted to kind of give you a little overview of some of the immersive technology that's out there. There's virtual reality, which immerses users into a 360-degree virtual world. So you're wearing the headset, an Oculus Rift or a Google Cardboard, and you're actually inside a science class, or you're inside this virtual world, and you're able to dissect a frog. And I'll talk a little bit about a program that just came out. There's augmented reality. So these are, it enhances what users can see by layering with 3D objects. So sort of like Snapchat or Pokemon Go, if you know what that is. Then there's mixed reality, which incorporates real world and digital objects, combining AR and VR. So it can be a little bit, difficult when you're navigating the different technology terms. There's also something called 3D printing, which has become really exciting and a an exciting part of science education and engineering. And we came across this, and I wanted to highlight with you the frog dissection, 3D frog dissection kit. And at the end of the presentation, I'll give links to all of these different products so that you can access them and really inspect and see what's what and understand everything a little bit more, because I'm going to kind of talk through everything as briefly as possible. But it's really exciting. It includes a dissection kit of the frog body with the life-size organs, and you also get a lesson plan. So it talks about a little bit about frogs and how they're important to our environment. So it's a really a nice piece of technology that can be implemented in a science class or a maker space, which is what a lot of schools are implementing. There are some really wonderful applications, mobile applications that can also be used. This is an app that won Apple's top app of 2018 called Frogopedia. And what's really cool about this app is that you can look in as a part of the app, you can explore the life cycle of the frog. It also allows you to dissect the frog, and it incorporates an augmented reality frog. So you can, through your mobile device, a little frog, life-size, living, seemingly frog pops up on your desk, and you can go through the layers of his body and identify the different body systems of the frog. So some really cool things out there that are at a minimal cost. So this is a company called Victory VR, and this is a company that we just found out about last year. They developed a VR frog, so you can put on the headset and you can actually takes you into a science classroom where you have a nationally recognized science teacher who walks you through a frog dissection. What's really awesome about this amazing product is that they recently not only partnered with Animalearn, but they also partnered with the largest biological supply company in the United States, Carolina Biological. So they're going to be highlighting their product. And this is just a quote from the vice president of Carolina Biological, supporting basically using virtual reality as a supplement in science classes, because they're an integral part of learning for tomorrow. So it was really exciting to see that this is happening, and it's really a step in the right direction for humane alternatives. This is another really fun, exciting product called the Curie Scope Virtuality. It's a t-shirt that you purchase for about $30, and you can download the app, and when you point the app at the t-shirt, it recognizes the QR codes and you can look inside the human body. So this is another way that you can learn about your own anatomy without having to cut into a frog, without having to cut into any type of animal. So it's really fun and engaging, and students are really excited about it. It also has a heart monitor tracker. So you can put your finger over the camera and it'll monitor your heart rate, and you can then incorporate it into the t-shirt. So it's really fun. It's a good way to test students and to learn their heart rates and test them. They're slow as opposed to their fast heart rate. So exciting for us to be able to showcase and partner with this company. The Mergeedu is another really exciting product that offers an AR anatomy type feature. It's a cube, a soft foam cube that you download the app on your device, point it at the cube, and you're able to look at the organs of the body, the brain, the heart, and the lungs. And through these apps that they have as a part of their mini-verse, their mini merge universe. And the apps are really inexpensive, and the cube is actually pretty inexpensive as well. And their anatomy apps are called Mr. Body and AR Anatomy. And they are going to be coming out with a new frog dissection app. So I'm going to be highlighting that here for the first time for you all. I got some screenshots for their new Mergeedu hub that they're going to be launching April 1st of this year. And as a part of this Mergeedu, they're going to be highlighting this frog dissection. So it kind of gives you an idea of the AR frog that the Merge will be introducing. So it's exciting for me to see. I've been a part of this, as I said, for close to 20 years, to see all of the new technology that's being developed. So exciting to share with you, and I'll give you a link at the end of the presentation. This is another company called Spectral. It's a company that's located in Sweden, and they've developed something called the Inside Explorer. So it gives users access to interactive technology to 3D scans of not just humans, but also animal anatomy. And I thought I would highlight the 2 frog CT scans that they have available on their website. So it's just sort of like a small minimal fee to be able to access all of their different technologies for the classroom. So they have the yellow-spotted narrow-mouth frog, and they have the Pacific-tailed frog, both that they obtained from the Florida Museum of Natural History. 2 other companies that I wanted to highlight are companies called BodyViz and Visitech. BodyViz is the company at the top, where they offer these 3D MRI and CT scans. So it's not just learning about the anatomy, but it's also kind of understanding what's actually happening. So if a student wants to enter into a health sciences career or venture into medical or veterinary career, this is something that will really help them with their advancement into that field. Visitech is offers another AR, VR type educational tool. They have a 3D theater system that you can access, and interactive desktops. And one of the things that I pulled out for you was they have this frog dissection component as a part of the Visitech software and programs. And it says, instead of purchasing 100 frogs each year for students to dissect or throw away, you can reuse frog dissection software year after year. ZSpace is another really amazing program that has been around for a little while, and they've been advancing. They also offer the similar frog dissection VR reality type experience, where you're putting on the glasses and you're able to dissect the frog with a stylus. The image is like pops out right in front of you, so that you can see him and identify the organs. So it's really exciting and engaging for students. They've recently come out with a laptop. A lot of students have Chromebooks or tablets that they can bring around. So this is something that's now being incorporated, ZSpace, into those technologies. So, and students are super engaged in technology like that. Frog Guts is another program that has been around for a while. I wanted to kind of just touch a little bit on that, because they recently have come out saying that they no longer can support their subscriptions, which have been over $200 for a subscription to their online program. They're now offering it for free. If you go to frogguts.com, you can download the modules, and it has dissection component. It offers testing with it. It's some really amazing things that go along with the program. And it's not just for frog. It also has a squid, a cow eye, fetal pig, owl pellet, and fruit fly component to the learning modules. So definitely, if you're interested in seeing what types of technologies are out there, this is free. So I would go to their website right away and download those modules and get those in the hands of science teachers or students that you think might be able to use that. So in addition to the technology that's available, there are some really great hands-on alternatives that have been developed by science teachers. A year ago, I met 2 science teachers, Mel and Gertie, who developed Getting Nerdy with Mel and Gertie, and they've created these amazing 3D paper dissections that come along with lesson plans and a whole curriculum that that teachers can use at a low cost. They have a variety of different specimens that they have, paper specimens that they have available. And students are really excited by that. It's a way for students to really retain that knowledge without having to cut into a dead animal. So it's something that really helps them to solidify that understanding of the anatomy, and learn about, learn about animals without having to harm them in any way. So yeah, we're really excited about the offerings that are out there. Syndavor is another company that has developed, a few years ago, I went to a human anatomy and physiology conference and saw that they had a human cadaver. So you can practice, medical students can practice blood surgeries or, different procedures on this cadaver, this synthetic cadaver. And then they ventured into the animal market, and a few years ago developed a canine mannequin for veterinary students to be able to use. So they recently just launched their cat dissection model in January 2019, and then recently announced that they're going to be doing this frog dissection model that will replace frogs for dissection. So if you're based in the US, they are looking for local middle and high school science teachers to provide input on the development of this particular model. And just today, before I got on this call, I had a conversation with another company that is in the process of developing a prototype for their frog model, which will be a little bit different, but the company is called Rescue Critters. So I'm happy to be a part of all of these different things, these balls in the air that are really happening in terms of science education. It's exciting. This is a model called from a company called Vet Effects. It's a dissectable frog model. It's the only dissectable frog model that I've come across, where students can cut into the skin and the muscle layer, and you can identify the organs of the body as well as the leg muscle. And what's wonderful about this is that it feels realistic, but you're not actually harming a real frog. And it was created by this company that has a background in movie special effects. So it's very lifelike and realistic. And when teachers touch it or anyone touches it, they are kind of grossed out by it. But it's exciting to see that there are these amazing alternatives that mirror dissection. So one of the main programs that we feature at Animalearn is our humane science bank called the Science Bank. So what we do is we loan out models, different software to teachers and students that don't want to dissect. We have over 650 different types of alternatives for anatomy, physiology, and psychology classrooms for all different education levels. And we've been doing this for over 20 years. So, the Science Bank is constantly increasing, although there are those tech companies. So we have tried to forge these relationships with the technology companies so that we can also promote their use as well. But this is just a screenshot of our Science Bank website. So if you're interested in learning about it, if you want to check out some of the different models, frog dissection models, you can go to our website. Depending on what education level you are, you can look up type of animal, the supplier, the type of medium that you'd want to use, and it'll the list of products will pop up for your needs. So as I discussed, alternatives to frog dissection are beneficial. Why? Because they're more cost effective. They're very effective learning tools. We have studies, over 60 studies, that show that students learn just as well from dissection alternatives as they do from specimens. They're more environmentally friendly. There are no animals harmed with alternatives, and they're amazing STEM resources. So as you can see in this picture, we have students really engaged using the Frogopedia app along with a hands-on model so that they have that tactile component. And what are we doing to address the issue of dissection? Well, we are working, last year we were invited to be a part of a dissection working group with a number of other organizations that are working on dissection and trying to educate our communities about dissection, trying to support student choice initiatives when possible. So as you can see, these are the number of organizations that we're working with. The National Anti-Vivisection Society, PETA, the Animals and Science Policy Institute, the New Zealand Anti-Vivisection Society, as well as Interniche. So yeah, we have been really excited about working with the group. Hopefully we'll have some more things coming up to be able to share with Save the Frogs. So we'll definitely let you know, or if you have an interest in being a part of the group, you can always connect with me and let me know if you have that interest. And this is a list of all the different alternatives that I discussed with the 3D frog. I put them in alphabetical order so that you could access them, just so that you can research those on your own time and kind of get a better understanding of what is available. Yeah, and that's it. My hope is with everyone here is to really connect with people who really care about frogs and want to make a difference for frogs. And if you can disseminate this information, if you want resources to educate your communities, to help frogs and be friends to frogs who are used in education, that would be amazing. Please go to our website. Please follow us on social media. And you can email me at ngreen@animalearn.org.
Thanks a lot, Nicole.
So does
I'm
anyone
wondering if
have any
people can
questions?
hear me. I have a few questions, but I'm not sure if
Can't
you
hear
can
you.
hear me. You
I can't
cannot.
hear
Okay.
you.
Let's
I
let
can't
me
hear you.
try something. Okay, let me try something
Oh,
here.
wait, I hear you now.
Okay, good.
Did
All
you hear
right.
me?
I'm coming
You heard
through.
me, right?
I I could hear you,
Okay,
yeah.
good.
It all came through.
Good.
So, yeah, thank you so much for that very up-to-date summary of everything going on in the world of dissection alternatives. So, yeah, that's a lot of good stuff and a lot of stuff I'd never heard of that's come up in the last few years.
Yeah.
Um, I have a question.
Yeah.
Is there any estimate on the number of frogs dissected in any part of the world?
Not to my knowledge. Unfortunately, frogs are not um, covered under the Animal Welfare Act. So in the United States, there's no estimation, and with um, biological supply companies, we can't get a firm estimate on the number of frogs because they're private companies, and we can't access that information. Um,
Have you guys ever thought about any legislation that requires reporting?
that's a good idea.
Okay. Yeah, because
Yeah.
it's always I've always thought that's kind of crazy that nobody knows how many frogs get dissected because nobody has to say anything.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, I
well,
mean, if you know of how we could do something like that, maybe we could work together on some sort of an initiative like that. That would be amazing.
okay, well, I'll keep it in mind. Let me see it. Some of these messages that have come through. Okay, so let's see. The message that came through, I don't fully understand, but I believe that what it comes down to is the essential argument that a person who supports dissection or is hesitant to change would always say, which is, and it's based, well, I believe the number one argument someone would have is that you can't learn from something that's not real. So, which comes down to what you said at the very end is that there are 60 different studies that say students learn the required knowledge. Like, if a student gets tested to see how much they learned about the anatomy of the frog, if indeed the goal of the dissection is to learn the
Yeah.
anatomy of the frog, then who learned more, who retains the knowledge better and would do better on a quiz? The kid with the dead frog or the kid with the alternative frog? And from what you said, there are 60 different studies
Yeah.
showing that the alternatives work at least as well. Is that true, or
That
can you talk any more about that?
Yeah, I mean that is certainly true, and I would also, argue that medical schools, they're no longer doing dissections as a way for them to learn their surgical skills. It's not a requirement. They are using surgical simulators. They're using human cadavers. So, when we're talking about doing dissections and animal dissections, this is something that, in a large sense, really can turn students off, especially students who really want to pursue a science career. It can turn them off to pursuing that career. And many students have been discouraged from going into the sciences because they faced dissection. So, why would we want to discourage those students that really care about science and want to make a difference in the medical field or in a veterinary capacity? Yet they're faced with doing something that they don't want to do at the K to 12 level.
I agree with that because over the past 10 years, people have emailed me all the time, or I see them post on social media about their real life experience dissecting frogs when they were younger and the oftentimes negative impact that it had on them.
Yeah. Well, what I would suggest too, if when you sent the link to this webinar, I checked out your dissection page, and I really appreciated all of those testimonials that were on there from professionals who really found the dissection experience to be very negative, and they really didn't learn much from it, or they were discouraged or disheartened by it. So, when you also have medicals or you have physicians that are using technology now, to explore the anatomy and to where, you have these amazing technologies. Like, there's something I didn't talk about called the anatomage table, and that's a table that is primarily being used in medical schools for students to learn about different diseases that affect the body. Um, and you can cut and slice and learn about things that you couldn't really learn from an animal dissection, let's say. So, I really feel like we don't need dissection, especially at the K to 12 level. And we should be encouraging students to use non-animal methods, especially with that data that suggests that students can learn just as well.
I think what you said about the medical schools is really important. The medical schools are not dissecting. When people say that kids need to dissect, the first thing I want to know is, why does a kid need to dissect? What is it that they need to learn? So some people say it's a rite of passage in science, which is not true because dissections, I believe, in schools is something that started in the 1930s or 40s or 50s
It
or
was in the
something. So it's
40s that
relative.
became a traditional.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's incorrect. And then the question is, what is the kid supposed to truly be learning, given that they've got 12 years to learn, a small amount of the knowledge in the world. There's a lot of things in the world they need to learn. They can only learn what they can learn in 12 years. Let's make sure they're learning the most important thing. So what is it they're trying to learn? They're trying to learn about frogs, because if they're trying to learn about frogs, anatomy is way, way, way down on the list of what you need to know in modern day about frogs. You need to know ecology and conservation. You don't in natural history. You don't need to know anatomy. So then the
And
question
that's
is,
a good
okay,
point. And
yeah,
can I just say
yeah,
one thing that you really touched on? One of the things I really like that you promote, Save the Frogs, is your build a frog pond. And I feel like, we really should be encouraging more schools to do these types of activities so that they can observe frogs in their natural habitats. That's really what we want them to be learning, and to be promoting frog conservation, right? And obviously there may be some places where that can't happen. So why can't we have these virtual frog ponds where you have webcams, or you have cams, so that people can look and they can observe frogs that way? There's just so many exciting things that can be done, where students can learn just as well and can be excited about entering or learning about frogs, instead of harming them or killing them in a one-time activity.
exactly, yeah. So for frogs, if the science teacher thinks I want to teach my students about frogs, then they're definitely on the wrong path, because they're just teaching the wrong thing to the kid. It should not be the anatomy, certainly not at the cost of the frog's body. If it's about teaching the kids about human anatomy, that's a different thing. And then we have to think, why do they need to know it? And if the medical schools don't need to do it, then the young kid definitely doesn't need to do it. And if the young kid wants to go into a profession where they really need to know the anatomy of the frog, then that can wait until their probably their graduate degree, specialization, internship, residency, when they can go in depth, knowing that they're going to actually apply that knowledge to their professional career.
Exactly.
And let me see if Bandana is on. I'm going to unmute you, Bandana, and if you're there, hi, Bandana.
Yes, good morning. Uh,
Hi,
Hi.
how are you? Namaste.
can you hear me?
I can,
Yes.
I think so. Try talking if you're not already. Or, yeah. Now I cannot hear you, so maybe you're
Yeah, I'm
cutting
so
out.
sorry. I was
Okay.
Yeah,
No,
we
late.
can
you're
hear
coming
you
through. You're
now.
coming
We can
through.
hear you now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, and I'm in Western part of Nepal. So the internet problem. I was late,
It's okay.
Do you have a question?
and it's so nice to see you, Nicole Green. I could not hear you long, or your presentation, your interest, your motive to start action is motivating one.
Bandana, you're not
It's
coming
a
through,
good
you're
one.
not coming through clear enough for us to understand. What I'd like you to do is, can you chat in whatever you're trying to say or ask?
Yeah,
Nicole, you cannot understand her, can you?
No, I can't.
Okay, yeah. I'm going to go ahead and mute you, Bandana, and I'll say, I'll type a message and say, please chat in your question. Please chat in your question. Meanwhile, if anyone else wants to talk or has anything to say, let me know. Um, Nicole, what
Yeah.
do you think of this California legislation? What is there something people can do or should do? Do you think these are the kind of things that are so shocking to the normal American society that they take a few years and a few rounds of legislation before people and politicians get used to seeing it and think about it enough to vote yes on them, or what?
Well, I mean, I hope that it is heard in a committee. It has not been assigned to a committee yet. We're kind of waiting for that to happen. It certainly has gotten a lot of media exposure, which I think that's great. So even if it doesn't, I mean, the thing is, even in my experience, even the dissection choice policies are can be difficult to pass. So I definitely see this maybe being a little bit more difficult or challenging, especially because it's an aim to ban dissection at K to 12. So I'll be interested to learn, just like you, to see what will happen. We're certainly going to support it. We're going to encourage our constituents to support the bill. I think it's worth supporting. We just saw, I'm on the National Science Teachers Association's email list. They just sent an email about it. So it's interesting, especially with when talking about all these different alternatives. I think people are becoming more aware of the issue, and talking about it. So if we can just, even if it's not passed, the bill doesn't get it acknowledged or introduced in a committee, then I think it at least it's has people talking about it.
Okay. I was recently on the Carolina Biological website when a supporter wrote me saying that one of their maybe their students' teachers was about to dissect, and maybe they talked to the teacher, and the teacher sent a somewhat defensive kind of letter about how safe it is and how Carolina Biological really is environmentally friendly. And they gave me a link to the Carolina Biological website talking about their dissection program. It looked
Mm-hmm.
extremely outdated. It looked purposely deceitful, and have and I'm sure that you and the other anti-dissection groups have had relationships of some sort with Carolina Biological, I'm guessing. Is there attempts to get them to kind of be more transparent and factual about what they're doing and what kind of frogs they're providing? And I'll also add that when they always say grass frog, but there's no such thing as a grass frog in any normal scientific use. So that to me also sounds like, how can we make sure that we're not calling something what it is? Because we don't want people to know it's the frog in their backyard.
Yeah, I mean, I it's hard to find their information. I recently came across their frequently asked questions, and it looked like it was up to date. It was from 2018, and it did say that they were obtaining grass frogs and bullfrogs. Um, so we have, certainly we have seen them do some really good things, and they do, as I said earlier in the presentation, they are partnering with that VR company, and they're going to be promoting their products. In the past, they have also, they've supported other alternatives and developed their own types of alternatives. But this is a business for them, so it's difficult, I think, because they're trying to make money, right, from these specimens ultimately.
What if they buy?
And
What you think they'd ever buy out some of these small alternative companies? Because it's not like their mission is to provide dissection animals. Their mission, I assume, is to provide biological learning tools to the teachers.
yeah, I mean, They're providing both, because obviously there is a market, there's a growing market in technology and using alternatives, because there are groups like us that are, are talking to teachers, and there are students that want the alternatives and teachers that want the alternatives. So there's certainly a market for it, but I think, it's just going to take a while to change that traditionalist mindset that this is the go-to way to learn about anatomy. I mean, that is just where we are here in the United States. We're not as progressive as those other countries that have, completely done away with dissection at the primary and secondary level. So, it's going to take a while for us to get there, just like with any type of issue that, the practice that has been done for decades.
Okay. All right. So Bandana from Nepal says that your motive in stopping dissection is very inspiring. I know in Nepal they dissect a lot of frogs.
Yeah.
So let's see.
Thank you.
We also have a supporter who wrote in and said he had a problem dissecting the frog in a zoology course in college. Didn't do it, so didn't pass the class. So, as I'm sure a lot of people have failed classes from not dissecting frogs, so it is good to hear that there are dissection choice laws. But I'm curious, why is it difficult to allow people to have a choice, or what kind of people vote against that? And is there a lobby that shows up? Like, who, do the biological suppliers show up when those things come to vote to try to get them turned down, or are there teachers who vehemently want to dissect and want to force every kid to dissect? There's legislation.
Yeah, it's the latter, really. I mean, it's really up to those individual teachers and their level of knowledge regarding the issue, which is why, at Animalearn, we try to go to these national science teacher conferences to, expose teachers to the non-animal methods that are available. We do workshops, but a lot of, we're a nonprofit organization, so it's hard to compete with a for-profit company, and it's more than just one. There are a handful of the biological supply companies that are out there spending big money sponsoring these venues, sponsoring like 20 workshops. That's just not something that we can afford to do. So, it's really a matter of that money that they put into their marketing and that they're doing when they're going to these national conferences, and they're giving away specimens. And when teachers have limited budgets, that's gold to them to get something for their science classes. So that's why when we go, we also try to do giveaways for the software and promote the different companies that way too. But it's hard because they have such a presence in the science education community. So yeah, but so those teachers, and I think a lot of teachers, are just so entrenched in the dissection activities. That's what they just feel that is the best way for students to learn. They feel that students like it because they're being taught to enjoy something like this. It's sort of like that shock value. It's that surprise element when you cut into something. What are you going to find? So I think that's why teachers do it. And so, a lot of times teachers or students, when they're faced with having to dissect, are doing inappropriate things because they're uncomfortable with it. Like I recently saw a video where a teacher was juggling frogs. I mean, these are not the types of messages that we want to, expose students to. We want to, show them. Ultimately, I can appreciate a science teacher if they're going to dissect, as long as they're aware of the issue and they can have a discussion with their students beforehand to say to them, okay, these animals come from, the wild, and we do have this alternative too that you could use Um, so, talking about the issue, having a conversation, talking about the ethical issues, I think I can appreciate that more in a teacher. But sadly, I don't think that's happening in classrooms. They don't have time to have those discussions. So that's why we do the work that we do. It's so important. It's really critical for anyone who's listening to this right now to just to educate people about the alternatives and to have a better understanding of what can be used in place of frogs for dissection or any type of animal.
Thanks. So I think we'll just end with one final question. Bandana in Nepal says that frogs are dissected in every science college and says, can you clarify how can we stop the dissection in Nepal? That's kind of a big question. And also, how can we get the software? Now, I'm pretty sure you said that Frog Guts is free. Is that the one that's currently free?
Yeah.
So I think that's definitely the place to start. Frog Guts. Yeah, so here's a list of software. Are there any of these companies like Punflay? I know they're based in India.
Yeah.
Maybe some of these South Asian companies would be more open to a little bit of donation. Do any of them have donation programs, or any thoughts on how people in developing countries could get access to some of the software at less than standard price?
I don't, but I can look into that.
Okay. Okay. So let's see. Frogguts.com. And I'm going to go ahead, in case you can't hear that, I'm going to chat that in. Now,
And
what about
and a
Virtual
company that I
Frog
didn't
2.0? Is that still around?
Yeah, I was going to say maybe Digital Frog, I mean, they're really no longer doing anything, but maybe they would have
Okay.
software that they might be able to use or donate.
Okay.
I can always reach out to Digital Frog, my contacts there.
Yeah. Okay. So aside from the software, any thoughts on how to stop the dissection in Nepal? I would assume, as with everything, it starts with education, as
Yes.
far as just educating, first off, talking to the teachers so they know that frogs are in trouble, that the frogs are dying because of the dissection,
Hmm.
and getting to the bottom of it. What are you trying to teach your students? And
Yeah.
do they need to know that? And if it's true that indeed they need to know that information more than the other things you could be teaching them during that 1 hour of time, then is there a better way to get it done? Can you have less frogs dissected? Does every single student need to dissect a frog? I know
Yeah.
some of these countries, they don't just do it once, but they'll dissect multiple times throughout the year. So,
Yeah.
it's going to start with education and making sure that they're aware of that there's a problem. Because if they don't know, they'll just keep, we love to dissect, and they'll just dissect 6 times a year, and every student gets pick, go catch your frog today. So
Right.
I'd start by just education, awareness, reduction in the number, even if it has to happen through real dissection, or if they think that it has to happen, a reduction in the number of frogs that got dissected, and then hopefully finding some of these companies that could provide alternatives. And, um, there's various wildlife groups in Nepal who you should probably get in on it. Actual registered nonprofits in Nepal who perhaps could apply for some type of grant funding to supply, probably pick. I would start with a school or university who has an active frog conservation program, such as, if you think about, where are there Save the Frogs Day events in Nepal, of which there have been a couple, or we'll say, I don't know, at least 5 or 6 universities involved. They have a history of actual in charge of those and working outwards from there so that you have people internally at those institutions who are assisting just one university at a time.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, you know, if there's any type of science education kind of venue to be able to, or any kind of a workshop that could be done to introduce educators to a lot of the alternatives that they could use in place of frog dissection, that could be a start as well. Definitely to, you know, have some sort of a place that you could showcase alternatives. I found that, you know, having an opportunity for teachers to test and try the products is really beneficial, you know, because they're so used to doing these dissections. You know, it's good for them to learn different ways. And once they have that exposure, they're not as turned off to that.
All right, good. So let's finish it up right there. Do you have any final thoughts on anything, Nicole?
Well, I just want to say thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. You know, I'm happy to connect with anyone after this to discuss these issues more. Any opportunity to be able to promote alternatives to frog dissection, I'm happy to. Or if there's any way we can collaborate, please reach out to me. Thank you.
Okay. Can you click back to your email address so that we got that on the screen
Yeah.
again? All right. So thank you so much, Nicole Green from Animalearn.org. Mark sends in his thanks for the informative and wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
And yeah, thank you so much, everybody. And this concludes the Save the Frogs webinar
Awesome.
of the day. So have a good month, everyone.
Thank you.